Welcome to a special edition of the Behind the Art Inspiration podcast, where we delve into the creative processes and stories of 14 artists around the world. In these episodes, we go behind the scenes with artists who are part of the International Online Art Collective, learning about their inspirations, challenges, and techniques while collaborating on our chain reaction project. Beginning with one single piece, each piece informs the next, provoking a chain reaction of other artworks until we have created a total of 100 artworks, assembled into one big multimedia installation. In this episode, we have the pleasure of interviewing Susan Detroy, who hails from, tell us again?
Eugene, Oregon.
Eugene, Oregon, that's right. And through our conversation with Susan, we will gain insights into her creative process and the inspirations that drive her work. I'm your host, Caroline Cart, and I'm excited to bring you this episode from my BC studio. So sit back, relax, enjoy, and join us as we go behind the art and discover the fascinating world of Susan. So Susan, I was looking through our Google document that I've been referring to through all these podcasts, and I noticed a couple things that I'd love to know more about. The first is, well, first of all, I noticed your thread of the dragonfly. And the second is you have this yellow container that is filled with a clear solution that you have like the dragonflies bathing in. And this process that you're doing, I'm interested to learn about that process and how it weaves its way into your work.
Okay. Well, in the beginning of this project, I had to think a bit about how I was going to do it because since 2016, a little bit before then, mostly I've been making digital work. And I thought, oh, how am I going to create pieces on a square in real time? And I took my thoughts to what I used to create. And that work included dragonflies. I have a series called Worship of the Precious that has two themes, cactus and dragonfly. And in that work, I use systems techniques called transfers. I call them liquid and matte transfers. And I use that. And what you're seeing is actually an old, I did photography for years. And so I have photo developing trays. Awesome. And that's a photo developing tray with water in it. So it looks yellow because it's yellow underneath. And what I'm doing is I'm taking pieces of paper that have images on it. And actually I showed this on my YouTube channel. Okay. So you could refer to that where I show how to do that. And I coat those pieces of paper in a hatching way back and forth in two directions for a number of times until I have a built up layer and dry it as I go along. And then those I soak in that water bath and I peel off the paper. I wish I'd known I was going to do this, but I understand. And it becomes like a piece of like skin. Yes. And you can kind of stretch it. There are many artists that use this technique for making products that like lanterns, they cover. Anyway, I've been doing this and I used to do it with pieces. I actually have a piece I'm going to show if you can see it kind of. It's in a frame, but you can see this piece has, all of that work, has those layered in that way. And so it's a technique I've been using, and so I brought that to the project.
And so what's fascinating is, as you said before, you came to the project being a digital artist. And so I remember the early conversations were sort of around, how do I become part of this collaboration that's, I have one of the boards right here. It's not for this project, but it's like,
Yeah.
it's opaque, it's hard. How am I a digital artist able to work on this surface? And so I'm hearing that that's how you were able to jump into it.
Yes, I used what I knew in the hard copy art world, and went into my studio and I brought out things that I used for years in creating work. I brought out all my old tools, but there's I'm using them again, and I have a catalog of dragonfly imagery that I photocopy. So I had all of that. I just had to go through, under the table and pull out those items that I used for many years. And of course, pandemic and all of that, like I didn't really work in my studio. So
let's jump into your reactions to others' art. Choose one that you want to talk about, receiving the imagery that they had made, how you made it into your own style, your reaction, and then sending it off to the next artist.
I adored that process, by the way.
Yeah.
I love to do collaborations, and I found it really easy for me. That's my personality, to look at art, because I was an art curator, and I can look at art and it just starts happening. So, but mainly over time, what I realized I would do is look at the palette of the person and use that palette in my piece. And I looked through what I wrote, the statements, and I realized in the beginning I was kind of a little bit tenuous. I wasn't sure how to go about doing it, but pretty much by the second or third time, I knew, like, oh, I start with the palette, and then I look for the sensibility of what their piece is about and the feelings in the piece. And then I translate that as I build my own. Does that answer the question?
Yes. And I noticed also in watching your videos, because, they're all on our Google Drive, that you literally are starting with their palette, right? The underpainting is using colors pulled from the art and then manipulating the paint into the canvas. And then it's many layered. Like, I really, really was drawn into the piece where it had quite a bit of text and images of a bird. And
yes, I think that was the second or third piece.
It was the second one, I believe. Yes.
Encyclopedia pages. Yes. I pulled out my old encyclopedia pages. Yes.
Yeah. And how much of the encyclopedia page text is still left, and how much did you end up working into?
On that piece, particularly, I left some of it. I like to be somewhat obscure in my work, but I don't. I try to walk this line between very visible and obscure.
Right.
And I do kind of waver back and forth. Sometimes it's like, I don't see what you're doing. And then sometimes it's like very direct. So I work in that zone where I waver back and forth, and all of those pieces, I think those pieces are representation of that, and that encyclopedia page, and being able to see some images very clearly. I kind of let that happen, but then I like to make it, I want people to work a little bit when they look at my work.
As we get further in the links, like up to, round 6, you're starting to bring more materials into your work. So
Yes, yes,
I
I
noticed,
did.
I noticed like the
I,
spools of thread.
yes, yes. That's
Yeah.
totally new for me. And I, I'm not sure exactly how that happened. There was something that stimulated that idea. Many, many years ago, I was a kind of crafting artist. I used to sew a lot, and in the cabinets in my house, I have many, many spools of thread.
Mhm.
And I somehow my brain like remembered that when I was working, and there was something that stimulated it. And I started dragging. I think the
Yeah.
first idea was just to drag the thread through the color somehow.
Mhm.
And then I noticed how much I liked just the thread being on the pieces. So all the pieces, since I made that discovery, have a lot of thread in them, um, that I'm using that are in the palette
Yes,
of the piece.
I
Yeah.
noticed that.
Mhm.
Also, I noticed you started bringing in the element. It almost looks like water ripples, but I think it's elevation drawings.
What what it actually is, and people should note this in your art life. If you notice a piece of paper that's in some packaging that you like,
Yeah.
take it. Because
Mhm.
that's actually um, tissue from hiking shoe. It's like my hiking shoes were packed with that paper, with that graphic, and
Yeah.
I immediately like, oh my god. So I just, I tear out the late. You don't know that it is a kind of interpretive elevation um, design that's in that paper that my hiking shoes came in.
Actually looks like thread.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So those two themes kind of go together. And I also did something that I want to tell people about
Yeah.
that's kind of funny. And
Okay.
I don't know if I told. I had some artwork that someone gave me that I'd always felt problematic about. I won't go into the long story, but I'd worked somewhere and it was kind of a problematic gift. And I had it up, and I've been culling some things in my house. And I was looking at that piece of work, and I actually kind of liked some of the pieces in it, but I never liked receiving it. I had
Mm.
very mixed feelings about it. And so I took it apart and I tore it up into pieces, and I wove it into this series, which was kind of a act of healing for myself.
Mm.
Like I was taking something that I felt not so good about and like turning it into something that I thought, I like some of the elements, and it had dragonflies in it. So
Ah, I read that narrative, but there's parts of what you just said that are not in the narrative.
possibly because it's uh,
Yeah, but you just said it in person, so maybe now add it to the narrative.
yeah, it's a good idea. But I enjoyed doing that, and I've still got a few pieces that. So I like to integrate different parts of my life into. It's what around it in my art statement. I say I integrate who I am and what's around me. That's
Mhm.
what I do. Yeah.
So I'm going to open the floor up to you to tell us
Oh,
anything that you would like to about being part of the project or a part of the project or whatever you'd like.
well,
Sorry about the sirens,
oh, I didn't hear him.
but I'm in DC.
Okay. Um, part of the well, I do. I did say that I like to do collaboration, and I I it gives me a certain kind of good kind of thrill in my body to know that I'm working with people all over the world.
Yeah.
I find that very thrilling, and I bring it up with my friends and I talk about it fairly often. I said I was on Zoom today talking about the international chain reaction. I said it gives me such a thrill to
Mm.
be connected to artists over the world, and it sort of instigated me to to apply and get into a show that's going to be like in Romania. I
Oh,
would
wow.
never think about doing that before this. like, I'm willing, it's like, I think of my world in a different way, and I'm on Twitter, so I'm talking to people from all over the world. So I mean, I don't want to say that I want to say that in a very positive way. It's
Yes.
very exciting to me. I actually feel it in my body, how
Mhm.
exciting that is to me. Like, I'm in Eugene, Oregon, and then, wow, I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I like that today, since I've been talking to people. I've been, well, late last night I was in Australia, and then I was in Milan, and then I was in
I,
Oregon, and then, I just shoot around, and it is very thrilling. You're
I like it,
absolutely right.
and it feels kind of humanly affirming to me. I like that feeling. And the other thing is, I said I love collaboration, and I think I'm collaboration is kind of a two-sided coin, like, it has a lot of positive things and it has a lot of bumps, because a lot many people are working together,
Mhm.
and you're going to have different ideas, and things aren't always going to go exactly how each person wants them to go.
Right.
And I think that's the way it is. And it's a growing process, but sometimes it's kind of bumpy. And I think that's a point that needs to be said. It's not all roses doing
Right.
every project. We're all humans, and we have different ideas, we have different emotional states, and our lives go on different ways. And that is an important piece to understand when you're in collaboration. You gotta,
Especially one that's this long.
yeah, in different countries with different time zones,
Yes.
that people have very different lives,
Mhm.
somewhat. Yeah. And the other thing I did that I decided early on, and wasn't sure if I would it would be okay, is I decided to use a theme through each of my pieces.
I could see it.
And that, I think part of the reason I did that is because I haven't been a digital hard copy artist for so long, that it kind of grounded me, like, so I wasn't each time like, oh, where do I go, kind of feeling, because
Yeah.
my range of hard copy work is small, or I mean, I have a lot in the past, but very small right now. And I wanted to constrict myself a little bit. I wanted to put it in a box a bit more. And
Mhm.
I'm really glad I chose to do that, because when I look at them all together, I feel very happy.
Like a
I mean,
series.
I've done that. I've pulled them
Yeah.
out and looked at them and thought, I like how these all kind of go together, even though they're not going to be together in the show. And you know, that was part of something that I did, that I'm happy I made that decision. It's sort of like deciding that you're going to do like something for 28 days, and it's a challenge,
Right.
and you're not sure you're going to get through it. And then at the end you go like, oh, I'm glad I did that.
Yeah,
So,
I like pulling mine out and looking at them as well. And I don't have a common theme. The only thing that's the common theme is just my style, I would say.
yeah, you have a painting style.
Right.
Like, my style is like digital stuff,
Right,
and
right.
it's just very different.
So
Yeah.
Susan, where can people, you mentioned your YouTube channel, so I'll definitely put
Mhm.
that in the show notes, but where else can people find you? I know
And
everywhere.
I, I'm in many places,
Yeah.
but I would say primarily, the best way to see my artwork, which I think is really what is important, Instagram. uh, Instagram's there, and most things from Instagram go to Facebook, but really I concentrate on Instagram
Yeah.
quite a bit. And I have an NFT collection. If you go to my website, you just click on shop, or what, there's different tabs. I have an NFT collection of roses, YouTube, Instagram, NFT, and I also have a Flickr account. And I'm saying that because
Flickr, right?
I say it because it's like, you know, you just type in Flickr Susan Detroy and or go to my you could put my beacons. I have a beacons link that's in my Instagram. You just press on that, you'll get everything. And in that Flickr account, you can see a lot of different work of mine. It just gives you a really nice, like it's only, there's no writing, there's no stroke, it's just like, you just see it all. Sometimes I feature that on my Instagram, but I am about just making work. And so I like people to see the work.
So I'm actually going to put your Instagram, then people can go to your Beacon account in the show notes. And I'm also adding all the information about chain reaction and where people can find out about that, learn more about that in the show notes. And I just want to thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah,
And
yeah, watch our release in
yeah,
2023. It's going to be totally amazing. Totally amazing.
no, I can't wait. And I want to thank everybody out there for watching and listening as we share our love of collaboration, connection, and art.
Yeah. Thank you, Carolyn.
Yeah.
Exciting.
Yes. So
Cool.
I will see you later, everybody.